It happened on the kind of night when the city feels too quiet, when the streetlights flicker like they're tired of shining and every sound carries a warning. That was the night Ethan Carter, a single father of a 7-year-old girl, stumbled into a moment that would change his life forever. And it all began with a woman he never expected to see outside the polished walls of her office. His boss, Amelia Hart, one of the toughest, coldest executives he had ever met, collapsed on a curb, drunk, vulnerable, and in the kind of danger no one deserves. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that even one good act can change a life, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story might just remind you how powerful one moment of courage can be. Ethan had just finished a late shift at the company's distribution center, his back aching from hours of lifting. His breath fogged in the cold air as he walked the familiar route home, thinking only of getting back to his daughter Lily, who would be asleep with her nightlight on, waiting for him like she always did. He never expected his path to cross Amelia's, especially not like this, her hair disheveled, her makeup smudged, her eyes glassy with fear as two strangers circled closer, sensing her weakness. She looked nothing like the pristine woman who never allowed herself a moment of imperfection. Ethan didn't think twice. He stepped between her and the men, his voice low but steady, making it clear she wasn't alone. The confrontation ended quickly, but his heart pounded long after the threats faded into the night. Amelia was barely coherent, struggling to stay upright, mumbling apologies that didn't sound like they belonged to someone used to giving orders. Without considering the consequences, or the complications, Ethan brought her safely to her apartment, guiding her inside, making sure she had water, a blanket, and the dignity she would have denied needing if she were sober. He left a note on her counter before leaving, one simple line, "You're safe. EC." He expected her to pretend the night never happened. Someone like her, powerful, guarded, fiercely private, would bury the memory like it was an inconvenience. Ethan returned to work the next morning, bracing himself for a normal day in a world where single dads like him kept their heads down and simply survived. But the moment he walked into the break room, he knew something was different. Conversations stopped, eyes shifted, and standing near the window, dressed in her immaculate suit again, but with a softness he had never seen, was Amelia Hart. She didn't pretend to forget. She didn't pretend anything at all. Instead, she crossed the room with a quiet determination, stopping in front of him so the entire staff could hear the sincerity in her voice. She thanked him, not with the cold politeness of a boss, but with the trembling honesty of a woman who had been afraid, who had been seen in her weakest moment, and somehow found safety instead of judgment. That moment unsettled Ethan more than the night before. He didn't know how to handle gratitude, especially from someone like her. Over the weeks that followed, something shifted, almost imperceptibly at first. Amelia began noticing things she never had. The worn fabric of Ethan's shoes, the fatigue hiding in his eyes, the way he packed leftover cafeteria food to take home. She asked about Lily, and her expression softened when Ethan spoke of his daughter's drawings, her dreams, her habit of waiting by the window for him. Amelia wasn't used to caring. Ethan wasn't used to being cared about. And yet, life kept pulling their paths closer, like fate was tired of watching two lonely souls pretend. They were fine. One evening, when Ethan had to leave early because Lily had come down with a fever, Amelia insisted on driving him home. He tried to refuse. Pride was sometimes the only thing he had, but she was quietly persistent. When she stepped into his small, weather-worn apartment, seeing the carefully folded blankets, the broken lamp Ethan kept meaning to fix, and the drawings taped to the wall, something inside her cracked. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. She saw strength where others saw struggle. She saw love where the world saw limitation. Ethan, who had spent years holding everything together with his bare hands, suddenly found someone who wasn't afraid to stand beside him. And Amelia, who had built walls so high she forgot what it felt like to breathe freely, found warmth she didn't know she needed. They grew closer, not through grand gestures, but through small, ordinary moments that stitched themselves into something extraordinary. But fate wasn't done testing them. Rumors spread, whispers grew. Colleagues questioned why the CEO spent so much time in the warehouse. Why Ethan, of all people, seemed to have her attention. The pressure nearly pushed Amelia back into her cold armor, and nearly made Ethan retreat into the silence of someone who has lost too much already. For days they barely spoke, both afraid that the fragile bond between them would collapse under the weight of judgment. Then something happened that neither could ignore. Lily, still sick but brave as ever, drew a picture for Amelia, 3 stick figures holding hands, standing under a bright sun. Beneath it she wrote, in shaky letters, "Thank you for helping my dad." When Amelia saw it, the tears she had suppressed for years spilled freely. That small drawing reminded her of everything she was running from, and everything she was running toward. She went to Ethan, found him sitting alone in the lunchroom, and sat beside him with a quiet, trembling courage that made his heart ache. Without saying anything at first, she placed the drawing beside her. And Ethan understood. In that moment they both realized they hadn't saved each other by accident. They were exactly what the other had been missing. From then on, they faced the world together, carefully, slowly, but with growing certainty. Ethan's life didn't magically become easy. Amelia didn't suddenly become someone without fears. But they became each other's anchor, and Lily became the little light that pulled them forward through everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know, and it lets us keep bringing you stories that remind us all that kindness can change lives. Before you read the final lines, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place that night? And so, a single dad who thought he would always walk alone, and a boss who thought she had no right to be saved, found each other in the most unexpected way. Not because life was perfect, but because one act of courage in the darkness created a new kind of light, one bright enough for all 3 of them to follow.